Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Chris Weidman, and thanks for checking out my channel. This is a highlight from my podcast, Won't Back Down. But before we begin, I just want to give a shout out to my podcast presenting sponsor, BioAccelerator. BioAccelerator is a world leader in stem cell therapy and regenerative medical research. Through the use of their powerful golden stem cells, they help patients heal from joint and orthopedic injuries, autoimmune disorders, spine and disc damage, and neurological trauma. I'm actually going to be going out to Medellin, Colombia in the end of August, and I'm super excited to get some of those treatments on my leg. Thanks again to BioAccelerator for helping me create Won't Back Down, which you could also find wherever you get your podcasts. Miesha, you take 5 years off, you retire, UFC 205, and you have 2 babies. They have you set to fight Marion Reneau, who's super tough, scrappy girl, who's been in the fight game since 2010, so 11 years, and she's never been finished. You come back, and like all the pressure was on you. What Miesha Tate do we see? What Miesha Tate are we going to see when she makes this comeback? And you honestly have never looked better. Your stand-up was just so crisp and clean. Obviously, your takedowns, you always had great takedowns, but it was just an amazing fight, and it was awesome to see you come back and just look so happy and like a brand new person. So just can you tell me what has it been like, and how was that comeback?
First of all, that wall behind you, I was kind of just admiring that. That's pretty cool. I got a little bit of that going on over here too, if you can see my.
There you go. I like it. Where's your UFC belt and your Strikeforce belt?
It's up there.
Oh, there it is. You gotta keep turning. That's a sick backdrop.
Yeah,
I like it.
So Johnny made this wall for me, this mural during my camp, and he just kind of was like, I want you to remember, like, each day, like, wake up and see what you're capable of. So that's pretty cool. Oh, and I hung my most recent photo of the fight with Marion on there. So I guess we're just going to kind of keep this as a tradition now. It's like, as I kind of progress through my career, win or lose, it's going to be, there's going to be moments that I'm going to add to this wall. But to your question, yeah, I mean, 5 years in the making, and I didn't even realize that, right? It was about 13 months ago that the idea just first crossed my mind to want to come back and fight. So I was really pregnant with my son, like I'm talking like 9 months pregnant. And it must've been the pandemic's fault, to be honest, like the forced slowdown and kind of just taking everything back into account. Well, like what's most important in my life. I decided I wanted to fight. And so I'm living in Singapore. I have Daxton over there. We decided I'm going to fight. I moved back 3 months after having the baby and just start getting back into shape. Takes me about 6 months to 6 months postpartum to really feel like an athlete again. And then that next 2 months, right, I started to spar, and there was some obviously hiccups, little things that was just as you take a layoff, right, you got to get back into it. Mind you, having 2 kids and not having fought between either one. So, I had some pelvic floor issues. I had some like hip issues, things like that from having the kids. And I just had to remind myself, like, you'll get there, like patience is a virtue, just kind of like take it one step at a time. So I did that. 6 months postpartum, I start sparring, really rolling, getting competitive, and I start winning some rounds in the gym. And I was like, oh yeah, all right, we're back in business. So I call up Day and I said, let's schedule a fight. So it was literally 24 hours, less than that. I think that the fight got announced with Marion. Mick hit me up. He said, what do you think about Marion? I said, good, great. Like, let's just schedule it. And so then we're 4 months out from the fight. So this really, what you saw in that fight was 4 months of work. So the striking and all that was realistically 4 months of work, because I did not barely touch any gloves the whole time I was retired, because I've never really loved striking. I've always been more of a grappler. Like, I'm going to do nogi,
Yeah.
So really this is 4 months of work. I have an amazing strength and conditioning coach now. In the process, I think the reason that you see a difference in me, though, is that the time off did me such a justice in decongesting. So I feel new in a way. like, I really feel new. Like, this is the first time that I'm really allowed to express myself as a fighter that I want to be. And it's not really dictated by anybody else, like telling me you can't do this, you've got to do this, you can only do this, which leads an athlete sometimes to feel very confused and frustrated in like the training camps and the fights. Like, just imagine, I mean, I don't know if you've ever had that, Chris, but let's say something was working really well for you in the gym and they're like, but you can't do that because the odds are, the percentages, it's not high enough. You know, you've got to train to beat the best. And if you're doing this and it's working against, that's only because it's working against this person and not because it's good for you, or vice versa, where you aren't figuring something out, it's not working for you. And they're like, you can only do that. You have to do that. If you don't do that, you're going to fail.
Who was telling you these things? Who was in your head with this?
It was my ex. It was Brian. Yeah.
Oh, Caraway.
Yeah. So, I mean, I felt like he looked at me as a representation of him directly. And that's where a lot of his like glory and success and what would come from was my performances. So he took it personally. So he trained me as though I was him. And I feel like, I don't want to say it was all bad. There's still like a lot of great things. I don't want to just sit here and like talk shit or whatever, because, truthfully, I mean, he is a great grappler, a phenomenal wrestler, he's a great fighter. So there's a lot of things I did learn really well, but the frustrating parts for me, where I think it really messed me up mentally and emotionally, was there was I feel like the confidence wasn't there in my ability. It was all about like his ability, and I had to express it the way that he wanted me to. And that was just really difficult for me. It was really, really challenging. So I think for the first time, like, I'm really able to express myself as an athlete, and have coaches behind me that are allowing these styles. That what you saw on Saturday, that is my style. That's what I've developed after time away. I came back. I'm still a strong grappler. I'm still a strong wrestler, but now I'm getting a finesse and a comfortability on my feet that I clearly never had before. I go back and look at probably my best striking performances. I would say maybe against Holly Holm or against Jessica I, and I had power, right? But I had trouble channeling it. I had desire, I tried to do the head movement we worked on with GIF and all the footwork and stuff, but I still feel like I looked like a grappler who had some decent striking. And Saturday, I feel like I looked at myself and I felt really well-rounded. I felt like if you just watched and you didn't know anything about me, you might've thought I was just a striker at first.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
So this is, it's really fun for me to see the evolution and how I have evolved with so much time off. That's what's kind of crazy to me. And I think a lot of people weren't sure, I saw the odds going into the fight and things like that. People just weren't sure, like, what does 5 years do to a person? Yeah. Is it better or worse? Well, for me, it definitely think it worked out better.
I agree. And I mean, I know what it's like when a coach is, telling you that you may not be, like, if I'm obviously a wrestler, but my goal is to feel just as comfortable on my feet as I feel on the ground. And if you have a coach basically kind of telling you in one way or the other that you need to be taken to the ground because you're not that good of a striker, that's going to get in your head. And you do not want to go into a fight feeling insecure in any situation. You want to be ready to win in every situation. And then let alone, and not just being a coach, but your boyfriend at the time. I mean, that had to be super hard, because like, you start a fight with your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your wife or your husband. It's a lot. It's like the biggest strain. Like, even for me, like my wife, if she's not happy and we have an issue going on, it is in my head. Like, and that's why I like that happy wife, happy life thing.
Right. It affects your training too. Like, if you're not able to resolve an issue before you go to the gym, which is life. I mean, sometimes we have that happen, right? And it's just, you have a shitty practice because of your personal life. That's life. But when it's constant, there's no escape, and that person is also going to the gym with you. And then if you're not just fighting about like life things, right, you're fighting about the gym. So it was constant. It was never a break in that. And it just got to the point where, in my last fight, I was just so mentally and emotionally checked out. Truthfully, I hardly remember that week. Any of it. I don't remember the weigh-ins. It's so weird. I couldn't go back and watch videos, but and it's like, I know I was there, but I wasn't there. I was just gone because I was so emotionally checked out at that point that I had trouble making connections with anything emotionally. You know, that should have been a great moment for me because, you know, it was the first card at Madison Square Garden. You know, Conor and Eddie Alvarez are headlining, and I get to be a part of that. It should have been a very magical moment, but really I was just on autopilot. I was just going through the motions. I was smiling. I was doing my interviews. I did everything I needed to do, but I was not emotionally invested. And I just didn't have it left. I didn't have anything left to be emotionally or mentally invested. And I just felt very checked out in the whole process.
Yeah, that sounds super suffocating. Going to the gym and having to be around them, and then going back home and having to be around them. Yeah. And I mean,
and especially just such a dominant personality. You know, he really has a very, very dominant personality, and it's very that's what it was. It was suffocating. There was never any time that we were ever really allowed to be apart, you know, at any point. Like, not even just, I mean, it was very rare that we were ever apart. And I think it was just part of the manipulation. Was
it more like, was he like a super jealous boyfriend and he was controlling and he didn't want you around other guys, or was it because he didn't want to lose you as like a student? He was your coach. Like, was it more of the jealousy as a boyfriend, or more of a jealousy as a coach?
I mean, I think there was a mixture of both. I wouldn't say that he was a super insecure person in that, you know, if I was around to be honest, because he was always there to monitor the situation, I guess. So maybe if he hadn't been, then yes, like, call, where are you? What are you doing? What's that? Sure. But it felt like I was always around him. So he always had some kind of hook in, you know, if so to speak. And, but absolutely too, about me being the extension of him, you know, he says like, oh, I gave up my career for you, you know, I made all these sacrifices. And so my career didn't really go anywhere, where I really feel like it was more that he didn't want to have to put that pressure on himself. He'd rather put it on through me, still be able to take the credit. I made more money too, you know, so that was something, you know, I would go and win a fight and make more money, and, you know, he would spend it. And it's like,
oh my gosh.
So it was just an awful situation. You know, that's his perception, you know, is that he sacrificed so much for me. But in my mind, he hated fighting. He got a lot of anxiety, and I dealt with all those things a lot better. So for him, you know, I'm still resentful at some of the things. Like, you know, I wish Brian well. I don't wish him any hard luck or anything. You know, I don't want to harbor any negative feelings, because it doesn't add to like my me being a more whole person moving forward. But, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say like there's no situations that still bother me. I look back and I say, you know, he was in the fight with Amanda, particularly, the fight with Holly, he was just like partying. He was partying the whole time. He would be downstairs. I would be trying to sleep, and he would get mad at me for getting mad at him because they're being so loud, that I'm like, I have to wait. I have to train tomorrow. Like, my fight is in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, whatever. Why are you being so loud? Like, why are you partying downstairs? What are you doing? You know,
that
and just
sucks.
That kind of stuff, you know? Yeah, he showed up to my weight cut with Amanda late and intoxicated. And he brought like people with him and if you know about weight cutting, right? It's not a time when you're trying to be.
Oh, hell no. You need to be protected. Especially him. He needs to make sure there's no random people around. Yeah, it's all people that love you and have your back and are there for you. If you have a random person around for your weight cut, I get super pissed off. Like, I don't want this guy here. Why is this person here?
And he wanted me to be like personable to them because were some, you know, basketball stars, I guess, or whatnot. But I just didn't, because it was International Fight Week. So he went to the fights before my fight, right? So I fought Saturday and there was fights Friday. So he was like, can I go? And I'm like, in my mind, I was kind of like, please, I'm like, go and stay. Because he really
So you were checked out at that point. At what point? And I don't mean, I just think I appreciate you being so honest and open about your relationship. And I think it's awesome that you're doing it, because I think it could help a lot of people. Because I think relationships are one of those things everyone feels like they're on their own, and their relationship is different and no one really understands. Right. So I think hearing you going through this situation is probably going to really warm people up and give them a little bit more confidence that they're not alone. So I appreciate you know, really opening up about this stuff.
Yeah. And I've tread really lightly. Like, a lot of this stuff I actually haven't said before because I don't want to put put Brian down. And I know that he's still like, our relationship was somewhat or was at the time in the limelight, and, he's still somebody known. So I hesitate because, like I said, I don't wish ill will or bad things for him. I want him to be happy, like, and move on and grow as a person. But, these are true things that really happened. And I think in order for me to really heal and shed some light on the differences of why I think I'm more successful now, and the changes of where I'm at is to be honest and really be able to reflect on these things candidly. And as much as I still feel like I protect Brian in a way, by not saying the truth, like I still hold back a lot. I mean, there's still a lot that I could elaborate on, but
go ahead, open up. This is the
I know,
Won't Back
right?
Down podcast.
But no one
Dr.
else is
Phil's,
listening, right? Just between you and I.
Just us.
but truthfully, I think that it is important, Chris, the more that I realize that my story has impacted other people. We've all been in difficult relationships or maybe had trouble leaving. And I just want people to know that I'm not any different, because sometimes I think people look at me, or maybe look at fighters in general, that we have something special or something that someone else doesn't. And I really want to bring it back down to like a human level. Like, we're all people at the end of the day. And like, even somebody that you think might never have an issue or is strong or empowered or whatnot, like we do. I had trouble leaving a relationship. It took me a good 4 to 5 years.
So that's what I was going to ask you. When did it start getting toxic to where like this is affecting me in every part of my life?
From the very beginning, to be honest. It was the very beginning, my first fight. So he's always been a very highly.
And why could you not break up with him? Or was he just tough to break up with?
Yeah. So I knew I really wanted to break up with him. I had given up. I was checked out of the relationship probably 4 or 5 years before I actually did. And we were together for about 9. But I had tried, and obviously there were manipulation tactics, like physically barricading me in a room, like not allowing me to leave at that time, or threatening harm to himself, which is one of the scariest things, because when you still love and care about someone, and at that point, it wasn't that I didn't care about Brian. I was just so tired of being under that kind of duress. I wanted him to go and be happy. So I didn't wish anything bad, but I wanted to leave. And so what I guess I chose to do was to hurt myself instead of hurt him every time, because I was convincing myself I could handle it. It's like, I can handle it. It's not so tough. Yeah. It's not so bad. Like, I can deal with it. There are still good things, right? You just end up convincing yourself in whatever way that you need to. You hold on to the small fleeting moments that are really good, and you just try to overlook all the things that are toxic and telling you that you shouldn't be there, that you're not happy, depression, all these things. Like, you just can convince yourself that you'll be okay, and that it's going to be better, and that every time, right, I'm going to change, I'm going to this, let's take some, if you need space. But then it's just all goes right back to the way that it was. And you find yourself again back in that hole. And it's like, why do I keep putting myself here? And it just took me a really long time to finally, get that. So we actually separated almost immediately after the fight with Amanda. Because
you retire. And then,
so no, I separated with
after him. Amanda, I'm sorry.
Amanda, okay. Yeah, excuse me. And then I fought one more time. I fought Raquel. So we tried to do just a coach athlete thing and have more space and allow me to be single and independent the whole time, even though he promised and swore he wouldn't, was just trying to manipulate to get back in. So that's what that whole camp was like, was just me battling to keep him in one place. And that was like, you give an inch, take a mile kind of thing. So it was just a constant fight that whole camp. It was brutal. So, but I was definitely staunch on, like, I did not want to get back with him. And so anyways, when I fought Raquel, and that was just as much of a nightmare, even though we weren't in a relationship, but we could not manage otherwise. And I just,
was he in your corner for that? Or
yeah, he was.
Oh my God, you're crazy. You couldn't get away from. Oh my God.
I endured.
I'm like sick to my stomach for you right now. Oh my God. Yeah. I can't believe what you went through.
It was tough.
What were you gonna keep going? I'm sorry.
So realistically we were separated. in July. I fought one last time in November, tried to kind of make it all work in a way, like taking some steps back, but it just was, it was not good. So I just felt like the sport and the relationship were too entangled. Like I couldn't separate from one and not the other. So, or I didn't know how to, like, and I knew that he wouldn't like let that be possible, you know?
Yeah.
So I had to just basically like, I'm retiring and that's it. And I mean, like they've released footage now and I even forgot about that, but like the arguing in the octagon afterwards. And that was because I just knew I had a better me to offer than what I was putting forward in the octagon. And it was really frustrating to know that there was just so much taking away. But even at that time, like I wasn't quite able to figure all that out. I just knew I didn't like that, the place that I was in, and I needed to change it. So that was the main reason why I retired.
Yeah. Was your coaches, or did you have friends or anybody that you could kind of like escape to and talk to, or you kind of like suffocated on your own where you didn't want to bother people with your issues with Brian?
So my coach, Robert Follis, was aware of a lot of, obviously, you know, he saw a lot firsthand. And so he knew, he was definitely there as a support for me. But he passed away actually shortly after that.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so he ended up taking his own life, which was a shock, you know. He was just such a light for everybody else, and he certainly was for me. And I think he was the kind of person who took on everybody's burdens himself. You know, he's very much like an empath. I think he felt a lot of that, and I think he felt a lot of it for me. So he was there for me. But I retired in November, and he passed in December. So after that, I mean, no, I was really pretty isolated because I had pushed so many people away for so long. It was part of like the relationship with Brian, was that the people who saw it otherwise couldn't get through to me. And so when he saw it otherwise, right, then the relationships became strained. He didn't want me around those people, kind of thing. So you know, I had a like non-existent relationship with my parents. Now I have a great relationship. My mom just spent a month down here with my kids, helping me out for the camp. And my mom and dad were able to come to the fights. I was like pleading with Dana. I was like, can we please, I haven't fought in like 5 years. Can they please come? So he made it happen under the COVID circumstances. But so life is just so much different now. And I'm so grateful for the experiences that I had, because, you know, when you have those lows, then you really have perspective on how to appreciate it when it's going so well. And I think that's just the overwhelming takeaway in this fight. Was my fight camp was phenomenal. My fight week was incredible. And my fight day was just the best it's ever been. I've truly never had such a blissful experience. Just so grateful to be where I'm at. I have my children. I have an amazing fiance and Johnny, who never takes away from me. Like he always is adding. Like, I don't know how you do that, but you constantly add to what's already here. And it's just a wonderful blessing to have that, and to have the perspective of the contrast, you know, what it can be like when it's not. And so I think I'm more grateful than ever. And so for that, I can truly say, like, I'm glad that I endured and that I came out on the other side.
Yeah, I'm so happy for you, and it's like refreshing to hear how you had that contrast. You know, you got out of the dumps, overcame that situation, then look at you. You're bright and excited about life in a way that I've never seen you really before, and it showed in your fight. I feel like in fighting is probably the best way to kind of see who someone really is. It kind of comes out in a fight, and you were just in such a good spot mentally and physically, that I'm super excited. And obviously it's true. It's not like it was just your opinion at this point. You had a lot more to offer this sport. And for 5 years, unfortunately, you had to get yourself together. You got to start a family, and it's all worked out for the best. But I'm super excited for your future and what you got coming up next. So let's talk about what's coming up next. So, I mean, looking at the top 10 of the bantamweight division, as far as star power, I mean, you're right there. Holly Holm is, she's ranked second, and then you got Amanda Nunes. I mean, they're gonna try to probably, if I'm Dana White, I'm probably trying to push you pretty quickly here to the title, because you're a huge name. You look great in your last fight. They could advertise the crap out of that. And so, like, where are you at with what you want to do next?
So I'm in this, weighing it out situation, but I feel like, look, I don't want to rush, but I don't want to waste time. Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of looking at this as a 2-year plan. Like I definitely want to have that title fight within 2 years, and I want to be a champion inside that. And then, I might be looking at retirement, to be honest. Like I think if it might just be a short and sweet 2 years, maybe longer. I don't know. When we get there, we'll kind of adjust. But after the first fight, what I'm kind of looking at now, I'm really eyeballing November as a fight card. And especially because I kind of want to walk it back. If I could be on the MSG card, because I retired in November, that would be exactly 5 years ago, the same place, the same month, 5 years.
Yeah. Not to make it about me, but that night didn't work out for me either. UFC 205, Yo Romero, that was a flying knee. Was that? Is that the same? Yeah. That was the same night. Yeah. Just first event ever in New York. How was that 5 years ago?
It wasn't a good one. Yeah. Well, it wasn't a good one for Eddie either.
Yeah. So. Yeah, exactly. A couple people had bad nights.
Right. But we've all had those, we had those bad nights, but look, and this is why I couldn't stay retired. When I really started to look back at what I did under those circumstances, I was like, I still have so much more to offer the sport. And what if I never needed to be full of the craziness, the chaos in my life? Because I always kind of had this addicted to adversity mindset. It's like the more adversity, the better. And that's just something I had to adapt to. I had to adopt that mentality because it was always so chaotic and stressful. That's how I told myself in my mind I was better for that. But truthfully, I know
if you're winning big fights and you have your life is just a tornado in your head, you're like, all right, I guess the more tornado I got in my life,
right. Like that's how it's been since inception, right? So since the start of the sport, it was always that way. So I just got used to that. And once I had perspective on the other side, once I was out of the storm and I had taken enough time off and I was in a really happy place, and I started thinking, oh my God, like when he hung this wall up too, and I was looking at this and I was like, I did do that. And I was like, I did it under crazy circumstances though. So what if I did it again? And what if I got rid of all the craziness and the chaos in my life? What if I never needed any of that? What if I could just be the best, truly the best version, instead of fighting the person and all my emotional turmoil myself? What if I just fought the woman across the octagon and I didn't have to worry about all the other bullshit?
Yeah.
And that just really got me going. I thought, I can't stay retired. It was like, I can't stay retired when I know I have so much more I can do and I can be better and so much more to offer. So, I'm glad that I didn't bite off more than I can chew so far. The return was great and successful, and I felt fast and in the best shape of my life, and the clarity that I felt in there, I felt so comfortable. I feel like I was telling people, you're going to see a lightness, you're going to see a move, you're going to see me move differently. And I think that's a representation of the confidence and the weight that's been taken off of me, like figuratively speaking,
Like, where was your mind at walking to that cage? Like, I obviously was in a really good spot, but was it almost like you were looking at yourself from the outside looking in, or were you completely like in your own head in the moment? Like, just, can you try to articulate where you were at mentally walking into that cage? Because obviously it's where you want to continue to be.
Yeah. I remember when they came to the back dressing room and they were like 2 minutes, and I'm like, all right. But it actually took them like 3 to get to me. And I was like, so eager. I'm like, where are they? I wanted to go. I was ready for the fight. I wanted to go. I wanted to be done with it, to be honest, because that's what you look forward to, right? Is the victory. It's so close. You just want to get in there and fight. And so, and then the walkout, right? I'm waiting for that. I feel like the urge to just scream. Before I know it, like the scream is just like coming out of me, and I'm just like, I guess I'm getting into warrior mode. And then my music comes on, I start walking, and it's a short walk, but about halfway there, I just started to get really emotional. I started to feel just amazed that not only I was finally making this walk again when I never thought that I would, never wanted to. And I never thought I could feel good and happy about that. I always associated this with forced feelings, that I had to do this. I didn't have a choice. And this was like 100% because I wanted to. Finally had a solid team around me of like, everybody was solid. I mean, And I started getting emotional. I just remember kind of like shaking my head, and I almost just got teary eyed because I was so happy in that moment to be in that place and have that opportunity. And truthfully, I was at peace with whatever happened in the octagon. I had already made peace with it. Even if I had went out there and I got caught, it could happen. It could happen in any single fight. I had made peace with that already because I knew I had put everything, I put my best foot forward through the entire camp. So the confidence was at an all-time high. Like I knew I was going to win, but we don't play this game because there's guarantees, right? We play because we really want to test, and I respected her so much. I was like, look, she's legit. She's submitted people, that she's won fights she shouldn't have won. And the fights she lost were very close, usually split decisions. Like this woman, she's a single mom who has dedicated past 11 years to her career. She took her son with her to the gym when he was 4 years old and playing with his Legos, and she dedicated herself 100%. And she has her son in her corner. I was like, she's going to be smart.
That's tough.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I was like, business is business. I'm like, sorry about that. I'll apologize later, but to your point, I was like, if I had my children in my corner, you better believe, like I'm bringing everything I have. I'm going mama bear, so I expected her to just be, the put her best foot forward. So I had made peace with that. It's like, if I lose, it's not for a lack of effort, and it's not for a lack of preparation. It's not because I was in a great place, because she was a better woman that night, and I can deal with that. I truthfully, I can live with that. I can live with the loss like that. But I could not live with the losses that I had before, even the victories that I had before, because I know it wasn't the best me. I just want the best me. And God forbid if I lose, hey, I lost giving my very best effort, but I don't think I'm going to, because I feel it in my heart and soul. Like I know my destiny is to become a world champion again. And I really believe I want it more than anybody at this point.
Now, how do you compare this mindset of you walking into the cage, where you were completely cool with possibly losing, because that's in any sport, but completely confident because of the work you put in? Like, how do you compare that to your other fights?
My other fights, I always felt very congested. I felt like there was a lot going on in my mind. There was a sense of overwhelm before I even got into there. And an insecurity in that it's not that I didn't believe I was going to win. I think I always had a confidence about myself, knowing I worked hard, and I always did. I always worked hard. I think I worked even harder, not physically, but so much emotionally and mentally, to get myself to that point. And I got to be an expert at compartmentalizing, trying to put things in different boxes and not open those boxes until it was time to deal with that thing. So it put, all the emotion, but that still takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of focus, and it takes a lot of determination to have that. And so I always felt really congested. I always felt like my mind was so full of, trying to compartmentalize and think about all the things that I had to do. And I truthfully felt like if I lost, I was a loser. That was my whole value in life. That's what, that's how I identified, was the fighter Miesha Tate. And if I don't win, I'm a loser. Is that your kid?
That's my dog and my son. CJ, come here. This is CJ. Say hi to Miesha. You have to talk to the mic. I think CJ actually wants to ask you a question, right? CJ, you got something?
What I was gonna say.
You forgot what you were gonna say?
Remember? Do you remember?
No. What were you gonna say?
I think you already said that.
Let me see. We can look at some of the questions. Oh, let's ask her about living in Singapore and what that was like. She was vice president. Are you still the vice president of one championship? And no, what was it like to move to Singapore? You can't hear us. Yeah. Sorry, CJ.
Well, moving to Singapore was quite an experience. So it was always something I wanted to do, was like live abroad somewhere. So totally different lifestyle than I was used to. I lived in a high rise in the middle of the city. It was busy, no yard, no anything. And very different lifestyle, obviously living in Asia too. But it was a great experience. And I think it got a little tainted at the end because of the pandemic, so that's just everyone's situation, right?
Yeah.
I think
was it tough over there? Was it very constrained?
It was really tough. It was not a fun place to be in the pandemic.
Really? And then you had your baby there. What was that like? Obviously, we know you're going to trust the U.S. healthcare and the doctors you have out here. And especially as a girl, you got your gynecologist, and then you got to trust somebody else. What was that whole thing like?
Yeah, so that was an interesting experience. So I had planned to have my son at the hospital, but naturally. I wanted to do unmedicated. With my daughter, I tried to have her at home, ended up transferring to the hospital. So this time,
what happened with that? So you were trying to do it like at home, like in the bath type thing, or
yep. Home birth.
Really? Oh my
Doula,
God.
I had a midwife, I had everything. And what I learned in a nutshell, not to bore everybody, but I keep saying it, that the body follows the mind. So true. So, you can relate that as fighters, I think we kind of fight fire with fire. It's like, who burns brighter in that fight, right? We're both bringing a flame, and it's like, we're ready for combustion.
Yeah.
But with labor, I took the same approach, and I thought, you know what, I'm tough. There's no pain that's going to like stop me. I'll just get through it. Like what do? You just get through it. Right. 3 days later of labor, it took me 3 days to have my daughter.
Gosh. Oh
3
my
days
gosh.
after
you got really tested.
I couldn't.
And you're at your house for this.
Yeah. I was dehydrated. I was puking. I was super sleep deprived, and I was definitely deteriorating. So at 62 hours, it was like 2.5 days in, we transferred to the hospital because I was still only at 5 centimeters. So it's called like prodromal labor, where your body's, intensely contracting. Even sometimes you are having the signs of going through transition, which means like the baby's like about to be there. I had that multiple times, but I was not progressing. Problem was, I was fighting my own contractions. I was like tensing. I didn't want the next one to come. I was kind of like, so my body was literally, so I drug my own labor out. This is what I think anyways.
Because you're such a fighter mentally. You're like, no, you're not.
I fought my labor. So like labor opponent, Miesha, we fought each other, and it was not good until, so the second time around, I was so mortified. I was so scared to like have a natural birth because I had the epidural when I went to the hospital. So even the birthing part, I was actually numb for. So 30 weeks into my pregnancy, I'm like, okay, Miesha, you're going to do this. I changed my mind. So I was like, I'm just going to get the epidural. And then I was like, you know what? Other women have done this. And I was like, there's got to be just something I did wrong. I got to figure this out. So changed my mind, changed my doctor, went to a whole different route. And I did like hypnobirthing. I did yoga. I did like all the like weird shit that's, it's like, I'm not like a hippie or anything, maybe like a modern day. Like I like
you turned into a hippie for the baby.
Stuff. I got into it. I got super into it. I had my son like it was incredible. I had my hypnobirthing tracks playing, and I went into like a hypnotic state. So like my mind, and I was like producing endorphins. I felt high during my labor. Like I was like woozy, like I was buzzed, like you had a couple like drinks or whatever, and you're like buzzed. That's kind of how I
no
felt.
drugs.
No drugs.
Wow.
And it was 3 hours from start to finish. And it was an incredible experience in my bathroom. I didn't make it to the hospital because it happened so fast.
Wait, we're talking about the Singapore baby.
The Singapore baby. Son, the second one.
What's his name?
It to the hospital. Daxton.
Daxton.
Yeah.
Awesome name. Wait a second. Well, so what do you attribute it to? Like being able to get it? So what were you, I know you're doing yoga and stuff. What was the hypnotic thing that you were doing? Is there something that you could tell the ladies out there that they need to do?
Oh, do not be afraid of birth and labor. If you do the right preparation, you have the right people around you, because it's actually science that, when you have adrenaline, let's use adrenaline, for example, because I think anybody can relate to that. Like you have something bad happen to you and it should be really painful, but your adrenaline's going, maybe you got to save your kid or whatever, you have, or it happens and you're like looking at yourself and you're like, oh shit, like that's a bad injury. You don't feel it in that moment because you have the adrenaline going. Yeah. So your body produces endorphins and also pain, but they dock, if you imagine like little ships, they dock to the same receivers. So if you have 100 endorphins and 100 pain, ships, let's say, they can all dock. If you get ahead with releasing the endorphins, or, and maybe in some other cases, adrenaline, they attach to that and you don't feel the pain as much. So that's really what you do. If you're in a good atmosphere, you got the low light, you got people around you like that are encouraging you. You're also in like a very highly suggestive state, like between rounds of a fight, right? Like your coaches, when they're telling you something, you're open to receive, like, because you're in a suggestive state. You're like, yeah, you're in instinct mode. Same thing when you go into labor. If you could just kind of check your mind out of it, let your body do what it does. Like, it's a beautiful experience. Like, I definitely don't think like anybody should be afraid of it. Like, women rock. I mean, definitely kind of frustrates me sometimes with the modern medicine, like how much intervention is actually happened and women get scared into like things that they wouldn't want to do otherwise. But you know, someday I want to be a doula, like when I retire, and just empower women to birth their babies, because it's a hell of a thing. And it's really cool when you actually dig into it, what women are capable of, and that birth doesn't have to be a scary experience.
Wow. I mean, that sounds amazing. Like you could, if you just completely relax and give it up,
Yeah.
You end up getting high, and it actually is a great experience.
And it's an amazing experience.
But if you're panicking and you've watched too many movies of these crazy things going on, I could see it being a culture thing where we're so scared, right?
Yeah. We put
hear
the
all these
fear
stats,
before it happens. And that's kind of like, you know, people who look at us as like, oh, you're insane. Doesn't it hurt? Like, aren't you scared? And it's like, we've just factored it in a different way. That's the same thing with labor. It's just but you have to factor it in for the objective, right? Labor is not a fight in the same sense of like what we're trying to do. It's not about conquering. It's about submitting and going with it, you know. So different objective, but the mind is so powerful that you can equip your body in any way that you want if you just sharpen the mind.
Wow. I never thought the Won't Back Down podcast would have a separate page just for pregnant women, because birthing women. Troy, make sure you clip that out. So just what were you doing for 5 years? Obviously you had your kids, but like, as far as like your every day, I know you weren't really boxing and stuff. Like, what were you doing? What was your days like? Yeah, obviously you met Johnny, super happy. You guys had 2 kids, but like, other than that, what was going on?
So when I was living in Singapore, you kind of mentioned earlier, I was vice president for one championship. So that kept me really busy.
How did that come about? How'd that all work out?
Actually, when I visited Singapore with the UFC, doing signings and kind of traveling around, I went to like 2 places in Australia and Singapore. And Chatri, the CEO of One Championship, reached out to me at that point and said, hey, if you want to have dinner, if you want to come train at our gym, you're more than welcome. Super nice guy. So I did. Years went by, then I retired, and I thought, I talked to Johnny. I was like, would you want to live in Singapore? And he's like, yeah. I was like, okay. So I reached out to Chatri and I just was like, hey, would you be interested? He said, yeah, let's, so that, in a nutshell, that's what it was. It was just
Wait, so really- Johnny, your fiance he was looking to move to Singapore because of the training situation?
Yeah, I mean, it was something we kind of came to together in agreement, but it was like, hey, I brought it to him. Like, I think I want to do this. What do you think? Would you want to, would you, because we had our daughter, right? So it was obviously not just my decision. I would need his support, but yeah, he was all in support of it. So whatever whatever you want to do, babe, let's do it. So, and he's just always been that way. So, so we did. It was almost 1.5 years. It was supposed to be 2 years, but it was cut short due to the pandemic. So when Singapore got locked down, it's not like when the US gets locked down. You know how like people still do whatever they want? Like that doesn't happen in Singapore. It's really small. When they say wear your fucking mask, you wear the fucking mask. Like,
what happens if you don't wear the mask over there?
You get fined.
Stoned? Oh, just fined?
I know. You get fined. Well, obviously, if you continued not to, you would get put in jail. And like they can still cane you, which is like they have like public canings and stuff like that over there. So it's not like I don't think you would get caned over not wearing a mask, but
gotcha.
But they put people to death too for drugs. Like if you could have like a few ounces of marijuana on you and they could kill you. Like if you come through Singapore with it, they can. Well,
yeah, I think I think Cowboy talked about like he brought like shrooms, like microdose shrooms or something to Singapore for his fight. After the fact, he talked about it, and then I think it may have been on Rogan when he was talking about it. And Rogan was like, "Bro, you could have got killed, right?" Like, I don't think he didn't understand it. No. It's just Cowboy.
Yeah,
it's no joke over there.
That sounds like a very cowboyish thing to do.
Oh yeah. So what's your so obviously you got a great training situation. Who's your coaches now? I know you're training with Sam Calavita, and everyone's always interested in him and what he does. He's like almost like, I kind of compare him to the John Danaher. John Danaher is like the wizard of jiu-jitsu. Yes. And then you got Calavita. He's like the wizard of strength coaching. So what is it like to train with him?
It's insane.
Am I saying his name right? Is it Calavita?
Yeah, as far as I understand, Calavita.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. No, he's just, he's a really good human being for starters, which is, that's a good check to have on the list when I'm trying to surround myself with good people, right? So he brings a great synergy. But essentially, He is a college math professor, so he teaches mathematics full time. So he understands numbers in a way that I think most people couldn't fathom. The man is kind of like a computer. So, and him being an athlete himself, he was a wrestler back in the day, and now he does Ironmans, which is like, you know what that is, right? That's the race. Yeah. They swim like, I don't know, a few miles. Then they get off and they bike for like 200 and something miles, and then they run a marathon. I'm like, that's insane.
Be a complete beast to do it.
Yeah, he started doing that at like age 44, and I think he's around age 60. He's done like 20 of them now. Wow. And he just qualified for a big one in October, so in Hawaii, which I think I would maybe go. I want to maybe try to go to that one, just depending if my training camp permits. But essentially, back to what he is doing for me, turned my body to like math and science, and took all the guesswork out of it, right? We always train hard and we think we know, and we just, sometimes when we go hard, we go harder because we're like, oh, we're a little bit tired, or you don't want to go that day, so go harder. But he doesn't, there's no guesswork. There's all the recovery is monitored, through apps and through a chest strap and all these things. So we know exactly where the body is, when to push hard, when to ease up. And that basically maximizes what you get out of your body, as opposed to just like the old dumb school ways, like just go harder, just go more, and sometimes you're putting yourself in a deficit that's really hard to climb out of. And then you add the fact that when you're tired and broken down and you've just been running yourself into the ground, we don't go and sit at a cozy desk job, we're getting our asses kicked for it. So we get beat up for being tired and fatigued and those things. So it was just really nice to have such a smooth sailing camp, because I knew exactly where my body was at all times, when to push, when to schedule the sparring to kind of go with the ebb and flow of the very intense strength and conditioning. And then the food part of it was huge too. I was eating all organic, only things that like grow from the ground or run or fly, like grass fed, all that. So it's very, very strict diet as well.
So you're in Vegas though. He's in California. So how did that work as far as training goes?
So he has an affiliate here that was able to run me through all my strength and conditioning programs. And then dieting wise, I did it myself. I looked into some people maybe cooking for me, but I wasn't ready to like give that control up. I guess I'm a little bit too like, I didn't want it in the middle of camp, just all of a sudden not, put it in someone else's hands. It's too important to me. Mm-hmm. So like I wanted to oversee my food exactly, make sure I knew what I was eating, and really familiarize myself with how to eat, so that I was actually not just my macronutrients, but my micronutrients. So not just proteins and fats and that ratio balance for my weight and muscle, but for vitamins. So like I was like not taking any multivitamins because I could actually see the balance of the food that I was eating. So I would take in my proper amount of calcium, take in the proper amount of zinc, magnesium, all that stuff. So that was really interesting too, that I could eat to complete like a vitamin the nutrition standpoint. Man, that's like next level nutrition. Yeah.
How many days a week did he have you doing the strength and conditioning? And then also, how often, I know he's big into the blood work and all the blood markers. How often did you have to do that?
I did the blood twice, once in the beginning and once through a little more towards the end, just to kind of see and make sure where I was at. But I was pretty good nutritionally balanced going into it. So I worked with Dr. Edwards as well, who had been running my blood panels over the past year, just to kind of try to help me make sure my iron levels and vitamin D and stuff. So I was actually pretty good. And then we did the strength and conditioning 2 days out of the week. And then the rest is just up to me, like how I train and, what other things that I do. But I pretty much stayed in the lane of like, that was the only strength and conditioning that I did, was those 2 days a week. And then the rest was all geared towards MMA.
And who was your head coach? Like, who was the one putting it all together?
Rick Little. Rick Little was my head coach. So,
Gotcha.
I attribute a good 80% of the evolution that you saw in the skill set, right? Like, especially on the feet, to Rick. Rick and my coach, Jimmy Gifford. My coach has been working with me for years, Jimmy Gifford. So I had a base already with him, but the progression that you saw in that immediate jump, that 4 months, like that was Rick. He just, again, mind-body connection. He had me do some funky ass drills that is like, I think other coaches probably would have laughed at, but he's so underrated as a coach. Rick is
where is he at? You were at Extreme Couture forever.
He's in Spokane.
Oh wait, Were you in
Those were-
Spokane? So wait, you got to explain this all to me. Break this down. So your coaches all over the place. How were you? Who was explaining how this all worked?
So I was basically the CEO of my camp. Like I decided how, when, where, who, what. I ran my camp. But I had.
But you were in Vegas for it all.
Yeah, other than like one short stint, I did go up to Spokane. It was just a couple days. But Rick did come down periodically throughout the training camp and was here, a week there, a week there. He would come down. But no, a lot of times we were just FaceTiming him in,
Gotcha.
to sparring rounds and stuff. So thank God for technology.
I know,
we made
right?
Yeah, we made it work. And then I worked a lot with GIF, fine-tuning my striking, keeping it crisp. But no, I got to give a lot of credit to Rick because the mind-body connection, that was a big difference. He basically, what Rick did, he didn't show me a move or a technique. He showed me a concept that made everything better for me. It just helped me be a better athlete, right? So I had better eye-hand coordination for it. I had better core engagement. I had better weight distribution over my feet. I had better correction in my never losing, not getting out of position, right? So I used to be kind of front heavy, right? Front foot heavy, and like kind of leading into, I think wrestlers, we tend to do that because we don't mind to get a hold of people. So we kind of get over ourselves, in front of ourselves a little bit. And that was like a huge thing that we really just kind of conceptually fixed. And
your footwork was probably the most noticeable difference, I think, from the evolution of you. Like you were very light on your feet, and your range. It was really good. Your jabs, you're like 100% on your jabs. They were landing. They were beautiful.
Thank you.
I think that's really all set up with footwork and distance control.
It is.
So how about sparring? Like, where are you? Everyone's all over the place with sparring. So I'm always intrigued on like where you're at with sparring. Some people don't spar at all anymore. Some people spar 3 times a week. Where are you at?
Once, I would like to spar once a week, but this camp I did a lot of technical sparring. So I really mostly avoided the heavy sparring rounds, just for longevity's sake, not taking that unnecessary damage. But there were a couple times, maybe 2 or 3 times throughout my camp when I was like, okay, I need hard sparring this week. Like, this is going to be hard sparring. And I told my partners ahead of time, I'm like, you got to take it to me. Like, you got to try to hit me because I'm going to try to hit you. I just want to give you a heads up. Like, now's your chance if you don't want to be, but this is hard sparring day for me. And that's what I need today. I need somebody to really give me that reality check. And so I remember what it's like getting hit. And so, but those sparring rounds went really well. They went about like the fight. So,
well, it sounds like because you had control over it too. It's like you were the boss. Yeah. Today, I actually feel like I really need to go hard and take a beating if I have to, or give a beating just to feel that fight, as opposed to like, all right, here's the third sparring session of the week, and we got to go hard because that's the only option.
Yeah, because it's what the coaches would say, exactly. And I was always kind of checking in with my coaches anyways to just say, hey, what do you guys think? This and that. Do you think I need another sparring? And we're getting closer to the fight. And they were kind of like, well, it's up to you. Like, do you feel like you need it? Do you feel like you don't? And I think that was so nice to have that vote of confidence in me to be able to make those decisions, because they know, like, I'm not one to take an easy road out. Like, if I say I'm not feeling it today, or I'm hurt in this way, they didn't question it, because my character is proven. I want to win this fight. It's me going in there. I want to be prepared. There's no way I want to cut any corners or take any shortcuts. Like, that's not my personality. So we really just listened to what I felt like I needed, and we pushed really hard when it was good times to push hard, and we eased back. And a lot of technical sparring though, where it was 10 to 20% to the head, touch, but not for damage. Little more harder kicks and harder to the body, but just all about staying healthy and keeping the longevity. Getting a lot out of tech sparring, a lot. And I got a ton out of it, because we went full speed, but low impact. Yeah,
you're not trying to kill each other. Exactly. You hit someone with a good shot. It's like, oh, my bad. I didn't mean to hit that hard, but
exactly.
You're not going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Let's go into, let's rewind, because I don't know much about it, but I know you wrestled in high school, which is obviously different for a girl, and you're probably on the old boys team, but just your childhood, where are you from? What your childhood was like, and how that kind of blossomed you into who you are today.
So I grew up in Tacoma, Washington. My mom was a single mom for the first few years of my life until she met my dad, who raised me. I was about 3 years old when they got together, and been together ever since. And I grew up as kind of a tomboy. I grew up on 5 acres, so I played outside a lot. Would cry when the sun would go down and I had to come inside. Like, I loved
That's
being
awesome.
outdoors. Still very outdoorsy.
That's awesome.
Climbing trees, anything actually inside. Like, I actually got the cops called to me for climbing on top of my my elementary school. Like, I was probably
Really?
like grade, and I like wanted to see what was on top. I had to climb everything. So yeah, I was running around on top of the building, and the cop showed up. I'm like, sorry. Like, I wasn't trying to do anything bad. I just wanted to know what it was up there, and just
Yeah.
thought it was cool to be able to find a way to climb up like the pipe or something. I don't know how I got up there. But so I was just, very outdoorsy, but always very like friendly. And my mom always taught me, to make friends with the kid who was the outcast on the playground. So I have this weird eclectic group of friends that I've had since childhood that are just so vastly different in each of their unique ways. And so, I always kind of kept that in mind. And what else about myself? My mom and I, when we used to play Barbies, this was like the only, like, people ask me, was there any telltales, like you were going to be a fighter? And like, for the longest, I was like, no. I was like, I was the first person to walk away. I was always very just kind of like humble. I wasn't scared, but I was always just like, no, like, I didn't ever want to fight.
You didn't want to get in trouble? Were you scared of getting in trouble?
I definitely had a healthy respect for authority, and I knew what was right and what was wrong. And I think I wasn't like, I had a healthy home life. I didn't feel like I had anything to prove, like, I think sometimes those kids that want to fight all the time is like, they're distressed in some way. Like, I wasn't. I felt very good about my home situation. And so I think for me, I just didn't understand it, like the anger and stuff. Like, I wasn't.
Yeah.
So sometimes when people, girls want to fight me, I'm like, nah, I'm good. Like, I just walk away. Like,
Yeah.
and they're like, that's what I thought, you're scared. I'm like, not really, but okay.
Yeah. I love it.
So I never really had a tendency to like get into fights. I pretty much got along with everybody. I took up wrestling in high school just because there was no other sport for me to play other than women's basketball. And that has been the one sport that I've been terrible at, and I had no interest in getting better at. So
what do you mean there was no other options, just because you weren't interested in other sports, or was it?
No, just women's basketball. It was just the season. Like, I don't know. In your high school, what sports were offered in the winter?
Yeah, basketball and basketball and wrestling. Yeah.
So so guys got to do basketball and wrestling, and women only got to do basketball.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So there was nothing else like to do besides wrestling. So out of default, my friend asked me, like, it was her idea, it wasn't my idea. I was kind of like, what? I didn't think we could go out for wrestling, but she asked me, like, you want to go out for wrestling? And I'm like, but the girls, do they wrestle? She's like, well, no, but like, they don't have a women's wrestling team, so maybe we can, I was like, okay. So I went home, asked my mom. She's like, don't think you're gonna like it, but of course, like, I'm not going to tell you no. She was never one to tell me no because I was a girl. Like, I really appreciate that about my mom looking back, because so many parents did. I tried to get so many women to come out for the team, because once we were on there, it was just her and I was like, wouldn't it be great if there were more girls? Like, wouldn't it be awesome? So we try to get them. They're like, oh, my parents won't let me. I heard that so many times. My parents, I was like, that is so frustrating.
Yeah.
Like, it was so frustrating. So I was really grateful that my mom let me. But anyway, so I wrestled my first 2 years. Sharon wrestled with me. Then
So wait, is this 10th grade? You started 9th grade?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
9th grade. So never wrestled a day in my life. So
what was that like?
Oh my God.
Walking into the wrestling room the first time. I mean, as a freshman.
You can imagine, Chris.
Oh yeah.
You wrestled, right? When did you start wrestling?
I wrestled. I actually first started wrestling in 2nd grade, and then but then I basically picked it up again in 7th grade. I did 2nd, 3rd grade. They didn't have it again in my elementary school or in my like junior high area. So then I started wrestling again in junior high.
Okay, so and there was wrestling in my junior high too, but never crossed my mind. I thought it was kind of weird, to be honest. Like, that was my perception as a
singlet. The singlet kind of definitely ruins it for some people.
Yeah, well, I was a kid, I was in middle school, and I remember all going to a couple wrestling matches. And I'm like, this is odd. Like, I don't really get it. Yeah. But when I went to high school, I just fell in love with it because it was so hard. So my first couple wrestling practices were complete ass kickings. Like I got my ass handed to me, and so did she. And like we were kind of like, whoa, like after was like, that was so hard. Oh my God, that was hard. Like we thought running cross country was hard. Like that was some shit. You know, and they, of course, they kind of shunned us. They didn't want us to stick around. They were used to like, because girls had gone out before and just quit. So they were like, okay, let's just get them out of here. That was the attitude. Let's hurry up and get them out of here. We all know they don't belong. They don't know they don't belong, but we'll just make it real clear, real fast. So they didn't like teach me anything. They just wrestled me really, you know, just wrestled my and they didn't show anything. So it was tough. But after, you know, this halfway through the season, they started to kind of warm up to us. And like some of them just tolerated us. And some of them were like, all right, cool. Like, yeah, no big deal. But by the time like I graduated my senior year, I ended up winning the coaches award. But did you guys have that at yours? The
no.
Coaches award?
What is that?
It's like given out to one athlete on the whole team. And I won that. The coaches decide on it, like who is kind of like an example, I guess, or like just a standout,
so like hard worker,
right? Maybe not the best wrestler, not necessarily your team captain or the person who won state. It's just somebody who kind of symbolizes good things that you would say, like that's somebody that you could, you know, look at and say, wow, you know, they did a good job. They weren't the best, but they did a good job.
A good role model for kids to come.
Yeah, I guess so. And so they awarded me that. And to this day, that's one of my proudest accomplishments, because it was at a time when it was not cool to do. And women certainly didn't do it. It was pretty unheard of. And this was the same team and coaches that really wanted me to quit, wanted me to get out of there just because I was a woman. And what it taught me is that hard work serves everybody well, whether you're a man or a woman, it serves everybody well. And that you can change perception through hard work and determination, that you can change people's concept and mind about you and what you stand for. And I think the fact that I was kind of embraced by the team so much at that point, enough to win an award over any of the guys, was pretty cool. It was really cool, actually. And so I kind of kept that mindset moving forward into MMA. When I faced kind of the same problems when I started wanting to fight, right? You go into the fight gym, it's all guys, like, what are you doing here? I'm like, oh, I've been down this road before. I'll just, you know, shut my mouth and just work hard.
Yeah. Again, you're like kind of a trailblazer for women's MMA. You know, what year did you have your first professional fight?
Early 2006.
Jeez. So, I mean, that's before there's probably at that point, there's really no thoughts of being like famous or becoming a millionaire or anything like that. What made you
I didn't even know what the UFC was when I fought my first fight. I didn't even know about the UFC, to be honest. Because I wasn't really, it wasn't in my wheelhouse, I guess. I mean, I wrestled, but I only wrestled in season. I didn't wrestle year round. And like my family wasn't really, you know, didn't come from a family of wrestlers. My dad watched the UFC a little bit, but I think we weren't close enough at that time, or even the perception, right? That's like my daughter would want to watch this with me. It was still kind of that old school mindset. Like nobody really thought that. Yeah. I didn't really get a chance to like be introduced to it even. Until I started training it in college. I kind of just stumbled across a club sport. I had a neighbor of mine, Rosalia, who was into karate, and she kept pestering me that I had to come check out this MMA club sport that was hosted by students on the campus. That's where I met Brian. So I was 19 years old. Yeah, that's where I started.
Man, I really started from the beginning.
From the very beginning.
Oh man.
Yeah. So actually he broke it off with me because I wanted to train. So he was like, you got to choose. Either you can like be my girl, which wasn't even really at that time, wasn't really his girl, like kind of playing me, like we can continue hanging out, or you can train, like you choose that, but you got to choose. Was it
just because of like the jealousy, like he like seeing the other guys around you? I'm sure guys were flirting and all that. Like, was it that was killing him? He was like, all right, you're out of the room.
I don't think so, because it was a small team. We're in Yakima, Washington. I was going to Central Washington University. And so like, they were all friends. Like it was close. It was a small team of like 8 guys. So it wasn't like, you know, everyone knew everybody. Everybody was close. They all hung out. So I think he felt pretty like confident that, you know, these guys weren't going to be ones he would worry about. Their friends. Yeah. but it was no, and I don't think it was even like a jealousy thing. It was more his old school mindset, because at that time I was getting no recognition. I don't think he thought I was ever really gonna fight. He just literally thought fighting was not for women. He's like, why would a woman want to do that? He could not understand it for the life of him. Like, this is not what women do. Like, they don't do that. So what are you doing? Like, what are you trying to prove? Like, are you just trying to be a groupie? Like, what? And so that, like, I chose fighting. Like, I chose to stick with the sport, and I wanted to compete. And I was like, okay. I was like, if you don't want to end it, like, literally, I was devastated because I just thought the world of him at that time. I was just so enamored with him. I thought he was the greatest thing since sliced bread, you know? So he definitely, he kind of left me high and dry there. Didn't really speak to me anymore. And we still saw each other in practice or whatever, but I just kind of like played it off like it didn't bother me, you know? And I just was like, but I still want to do this more. And that's like the one thing I have never sacrificed. You know, I've given a lot in relationships, but not sports. Like, sports is the one thing I was like, that I will choose that over, you know, if a guy's going to make me choose, like, I always choose a sport. Sorry.
Sorry, Johnny boy.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, man, but don't put me in that ultimatum because you might not like the answer.
Yeah, exactly. It's just in you now. Bro, it's amazing, your story. It's so inspiring to hear everything you've been through. I mean, from the get-go of starting MMA, I mean, starting in wrestling on the old boys team, and then all the way through starting your first day in Caraway's there. And that's the beginning of you doing MMA. And then everything you've been able to accomplish still during dealing with Caraway that whole time, and everything that brought, becoming a champion in Strikeforce, a champion in UFC. I mean, It really is inspiring for people to hear this. And it's super exciting to now look into your future with having that all behind you and having that ability to look from the outside in now and seeing how great you're, just so grateful now. You know where you came from.
I'm so grateful. And what's really weird is that I know I'm a veteran of this sport by definition, but I feel so new. You know, it's a weird, you know, kind of the polarity of the situation, if you will, is like, I've been doing this for so long, but it doesn't feel like it. After taking nearly 5 years off and being so refreshed and having this new style and new evolution and new situation, it's like, I feel like I just feel new. I feel like new blood in the division. I don't feel like a veteran, but I guess I have the benefit of being a veteran in my back pocket, that I have been through all these experiences before. You know, I have that I can take with me, the positives away from those experiences and all the fights that I've had, and you know, fight IQ, things like that when you're newer in the sport, right, it can take a little time to develop. So
those big moments you've been in some huge moments, you know, that sometimes it's too big for people.
Yeah, people were asking me too, like, should I have been on the Conor card, or do I wish that I was? And I'm like, look, no, because I've been there before, and I know it's a lot, and it's crazy, and it's like, do we miss the audience, this, that? I was like, no, it was perfect for my comeback fight, because I just wanted to fight and focus on that. And I was like, I know the rest will come. And now that I have that win under my belt, like, I feel more confident than ever. Like, I'm ready to take on more. I'm kind of gunning for that Madison Square Garden card in November. Like, that would be a great comeback for me. So we'll see. We have yet to really talk to UFC about it, but I've already been kind of just throwing it out there in interviews. Like, I would like that.
This is awesome. It has been over an hour. Troy's got to leave here in a little bit. So last question, a year from now, where do you see yourself?
I see myself being a number one contender for sure. And possibly right around that time, lining myself up for that title shot. Kind of depends how quickly these next couple fights go. But I think I should have at least 2 more before I'm fighting for a title. So as I know, Holly's been calling me out, and like, I'm more than willing to entertain that fight at some point. But I think right now I just got ranked number 8, which I'm stoked about. I did not know how this fight was going to translate with the past, what I've been doing, fighting Mari Renault, who is, she's ranked, so she was 12th, right? So anyways, I'm number 8 now. I think I should fight somebody in like the 5 to 10 range, right? And then fight for a contender spot, and then fight for championship. So I think a year from now, I could have just wrapped up that second fight and be looking for, or it would be 3rd fight in total, but have won that contender fight, and then fight for a title. So yeah, I think I'll be
rematch with Nunes.
Yeah, I think so.
The new Tate.
Exactly. Tate 2.0.
Let's go. All right. Hey, I really appreciate you coming on the show. It was awesome talking to you, and I really best of luck. I hope you get this fight in November and kind of rewrite your new history.
Yeah.
Your new story.
Same for you. Same for you, Chris. Like I'm excited for your, for you to get back up on your feet. No pun intended.
yeah, not yet. Thanks. I don't have a leg to stand on here, Miesha.
But no, I really am. I'm looking forward to it because I think you still got plenty left in the gas tank. So always been a fan. It was great to fight with you. Also on the card when you fought Anderson, right? I was on that.
Yeah. 160. I think it was 162 or 168. The December one.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So
I honestly I've been a huge fan of yours since the beginning as well, and now especially your comeback, it's so inspiring for me because I feel like there are a lot of similarities between me and you and our careers, and and just seeing what you're able to do is inspiring for me. So I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it too, and thanks for having me on today. It was a great, candid conversation.